My name is Jeff Zielinski. I'm a lifelong BMX rider, photographer, videographer, and more recently team manager for GT BMX, as well as editor, co-founder of Bmx. High school, there was like one of those introductory black and white classes. That was like literally the first time in high school where I was like, this is awesome. You know, like I was all about it, like right out of the gate. There was like the option to like stay after school to use the darkroom more. And it was the first time I found myself voluntarily staying at high school longer. You know, normally I was just out of there. I didn't really want to ever carry anything when I went bike riding. So the idea of like carrying a camera while bike riding, I just didn't want to take it with me. So photography and riding were pretty separate. Like I'd go shoot photos of bands play, or we'd go on a hike or something and I'd shoot photos. But when we went riding, I'd usually just let the camera at home. Plus, mind you, in high school, we had to borrow the cameras from school. So we had like a day or two before we had to give them back. So there wasn't much time to really shoot BMX stuff at that point. But I did dabble, of course. When I was still in high school, I remember in the photo class, there was like a poster for the School of Visual Arts. It's this school in Manhattan. I grew up in New Jersey, like right across from the city. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna be a pro bike rider, you know, which is every kid's dream, you know. I was pretty aware of that. So I was like, yeah, sure, maybe I'll just go to school for photography. So I started there, and I was probably like 2 or 3 months in, and I dislocated my foot. Like literally my foot was like upside down, you know, so I had a cast and crutches, and I was commuting to the city every day, taking a bus. And the commute was gonna be too much on crutches. You know, you have to like get to the bus and then walk like 20 city blocks to the school. So I took like leave of absence, and then I had to make up the rest of my semester during the summer. So I started, and it's the summer, mind you. So all my friends are riding, and it's full blown like BMX season on the East Coast. And I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't go to school every day when everyone was riding. So I dropped out, and I started working at like a natural food store. I actually had just turned vegan around the same time, so everything was just kind of going in that direction. And then I started filming again. So I was at the point where I was kind of filming and shooting photos, kind of juggling both. And I think that transition happened because in high school, I was using the darkroom, and same thing when I was going to SVA for a little while. So you could actually process your film and see the results. And then when I didn't have access to the darkroom, I felt like the photography that I identified with wasn't really there anymore, because I couldn't print the photos. So I just started shooting video because I had like that instant gratification. So I did that for a while, and then I got hurt again, another broken ankle or something. But I wanted to get out with my friends, so I'm like, I'll just go out and shoot photos today, you know. So I hobbled along and shot some stuff. And at the time, I actually thought their photos were pretty good, like good enough. So I'll backtrack a little bit. At the time, a lot of my friends that I was growing up riding with were actually getting pretty good, like doing things that we saw like guys doing in the magazines and the good videos, like Bob Sherbo and George Santos and Joe Tizio. So I'm like, oh, you know, maybe these are good enough, you know, to run in the magazine. So I was sending photos, and Mark Losi sent it back and gave me some critiques and everything. So, but at that point, I kind of felt the buzz, you know. I'm like, all right, I could fix that up. I can, you know, take his critiques and try again. So that was kind of how it went for a couple months. And then I think it was BMX Action. Their quality was a little lower as far as like the standard of photography. So they started running photos like right away. And then I remember getting a check. It might have been like $55 or something, but I was like, I got paid for a photo. This is crazy, you know. And then that was it. I'm like, all right, I can do this, you know. And I was working part-time at the natural food store, and then shooting photos, and, you know, collecting, I don't know, a couple $100 every month or two, maybe. And so I was saving for better gear at that point. You know, I just like worked off the books. I ate all my meals at the natural food store and just saved all my money, and just I saved up and got a Canon EOS 1N RS with like drive booster. You think our car is too loud?
It'll be an awesome little B-roll clip.
So yeah, Canon EOS 1N with a dry booster. That was the photo. That was the camera that Mark Losey had at the time. T.V. Jefferson had it, and those were the two people whose work I was looking at the most at the time. So basically, the way I learned about action sports lighting, obviously I looked at all Bmx magazines, but the skate mags, they had more photographers, and I feel like the photographers were definitely pushing it a little harder. It was like the Bmx photos, like it was really common at the time for photographers, their other slave flashes to be in the photo, like lying down on the ground and in the background. And I'm like, why is the flash in the photo on the ground? Like I understood what it was doing. I'm like, why is it in the photo? Or there would be like literally like a person in the photo holding it, and it just seemed like sloppy. And you never saw that in skate photos. So right away, they were on like a higher level as far as like their technical standards, I guess you could say. But yeah, Tebow was one who stood out, and John Humphreys and a couple other guys. So yeah, I would look at the skate photos in the magazines, and then I'd watch the videos, and you would see the same tricks, and I'd pause it and slow, frame by frame, and you could see where the flashes were, and I'm like, okay, there's three of them, one's like really high, one's at the top of the stairs, and I was like, okay, that makes sense. Now I know where their lights were, so I basically kind of figured it out from watching skate videos. To look in the magazines and compare my notes to the videos. All the time you going out, you get the rider, you find a spot, you go out and shoot something, and it's a little blown out, or the shadows are weird, or whatever the problem is. You're like, well, I can't keep on doing this. It's just so much time and effort went in to get this photo. I can't keep blowing it like that. So I would just like hard, fast rules. Like, okay, like I know exactly what I did there. I'm not gonna do that again. And you make that like mental checklist, And I actually remember when I was in SVA, I remember there was like one or two times when I actually brought magazines to school. There was a strobe sequence of Dave Parrick just doing a Smith grind on the bench here in Long Beach. The benches are gone, the Parrick benches. But this was a long exposure at night, a couple pops of the flash. But at the time, I had no idea how it was done. And I remember bringing it and asking one of the professors, like, how'd they do this? Because obviously there was no internet back then. You couldn't just like Google like anything. Well, you know what I mean? Probably getting my first cover, which was Marcus Wilkie, also shot in Long Beach. It wasn't like an exceptional photo. I mean, it was a stock photo, just like a wall ride table at nighttime, but it just fit into like the main feature story. It was like an article about the Long Beach industry BMX scene at the time. And he was a pro rider from Germany, living in Long Beach, like living the dream of the industry rider. So it kind of made sense, tied in it, and it fit well for what we were looking for, requirements for a cover as far as like position of the rider and negative space and stuff. But yeah, first cover was definitely a highlight. I got 70 odd covers, but even it always felt awesome. There was never like, oh, another one. Even though I worked at the magazine full time, so it kind of made sense that I would get covers, but it still felt awesome. It's funny, I feel like there's probably more people shooting photos now than ever. I mean, granted, it's probably with their phones and things, but you go to events now, and before they would be, before everyone had a camera in their pocket, usually someone shooting photos like they were there because that was like their job, and now sometimes people who are gonna just take a photo and for prosperity's sake or nothing at all, get in your way when you're trying to actually do your job, and shoot a photo with like your $10,000 investment you're holding in your hands, and that photo has to go somewhere, but you're like fighting for space with somebody who might just throw it on like their like Insta story or something, which is kind of funny. It's a weird dichotomy that we're in now. I think the BMX print going away was definitely partially riders, I mean less subscribers, but also brands. When websites first became more prominent, a lot of brands were like, okay, do we still need to invest in print? I mean, there's more eyeballs there. And for a while, a lot of brands did pull out, and the magazines definitely got a lot thinner. And then, I think that kind of settled, and then brands were like, you know what? Like, for whatever reasons, they're like, we still need print also, or whatever. So they would reinvest a little bit, but the magazines definitely never got back to the same strength they were, in their peak. And then I think when brands, especially once Instagram came along and brands became producing their own media, they were like, well, we're going to invest our money in our own media and our team, and maybe some online advertising, but we can't afford to also invest in the magazine. And plus, younger kids too, the new generation, yeah, they literally grew up in a digital realm. Like the idea of reading something in paper, and they're just not, just so far beyond them, it seems like. Speaking from like my assumptions, I can't say their opinions for sure, obviously, but you know, growing up, you go meet someone to ride, and they're like, they're not ready yet, so you go inside their house and you sit on their couch, and their coffee table has like back issues, you know, and you're like, oh, I'll just go flip through this again. Oh yeah, you know, this is sick. But now you go there and there might be an iPad there, you know. That's just the reality. I feel like if Instagram went away, people would just be sitting around like, what the fuck are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Like,
how do I even contact somebody now?
Yeah, all of a sudden the Facebook stock goes up again. Like if I were to stop shooting BMX and I just wanted to continue shooting photos, I don't know what I would do. Like there's really nothing else that interests me enough to like go down a career path as far as photography goes. Like I was doing weddings. I've done, you know, 20 odd weddings, but that was mostly because when Ride was going away, and I'm like, if I lose my job, like what can I do to like continue? I still want to shoot photos, and like weddings are easy, and people are always going to get married, and I had a lot of friends getting married anyway, so I'm like, well, I'll just build a portfolio so I have something as like a backup. It wasn't necessarily what I was excited about. Like after I have a good day of riding and I shoot something I'm really excited about, I'm driving home and I'm amped on it. You know, you think about what you shot and you can't wait to see it. Well, when it was filmed, I'd be, you know, driving to the lab and you're thinking about what it's going to look like when you get the film back. But now I'm like, I can't wait to load the photos on the computer, you know, and just like, I don't drive home from a wedding like, I can't wait to check out the photos, you know. Like I'm more like, fuck, I'm tired, you know, like I have to go through 3,000 photos. So yeah, I don't know what, as far as BMX or as far as photography related, is going to would feel that same feeling for me, like driving home, being excited to look at the photos. The concept of using flashes for action photos, especially in the film days, I mean, you meter to the highlights, so the shadows are just going to be completely detailless. So you kind of had to just to make the photos look what you'd be looking at with like the naked eye, you know, like 'cause obviously your brain can interpret highlights and shadows and everything looks normal, but on a piece of like Fuji Velvia, it's like if you want the sky to look blue, the shadows are going to be just black. So you have to get the film shadows and you just even it all out, really. Or if you open up, you just lose a lot of detail in the highlights. So you kind of had to use flashes, really. Nowadays, you don't have to use flashes because obviously with the raw files and everything, unless you completely blow it. But back to the question, yeah, it was kind of mandatory. You just really needed to, unless you had the sun to your back, illuminating the subject perfectly, and maybe it was like a really bright building with some bounce or something. But otherwise, yeah, you kind of have to. And then obviously there is as far as flash durations go also, and just freezing the motion. And even with the strobes, you still have to pan and things like that too. It was like the 500th panning, super fast flash durations. And back then, mostly when I was shooting with the Hasselblad, it was, unless you had like Ellen Chromes or Pro Photos, like really expensive gear and a really heavy battery, which you're not gonna pedal around a city carrying. It was like Quantum Q flashes in the Sunpack 622, and they were literally like right out of the frame. You had to get them as close as you could to have them to like maybe like quarter power tops. Anything more and the flash duration was too slow anyway. And then they came with the Luminine action packs, which were awesome, full power, had the fastest flash duration, but those things weren't made too well, and they'd always break. But it was definitely a game changer for the time. I still have all my film gear in a Tupperware box, like in my closet, like the X-Pan, which is still my favorite camera. But it's funny because the X-Pan too, like even when we did Ride, because obviously the X-Pan, like just the format, like if you run on a spread, there's all this, I don't want to say, well, like all this negative space, you know. So it was like, I think I squeezed a lot of X-Pan photos in Ride over the years. But if it runs a spread, then it's like, well, are we just gonna, because you know, obviously magazine pages are like, it's like valuable real estate, you know. It's like, well, like it looks great just by itself, but it's like, all this empty space. Like, can we try to work in other photos? But then they're really small compared to the X-Pan photo. It's like the photo that would fit there. It's like you don't want to see your photo run that small. You always want to see your photos run as big as possible. You know. So the downfall for me with film photography all happened at Transworld, and they had a drum scanner, like an incredible drum scanner, this giant machine. So, and the scans looked incredible. They looked so good. It was honestly, the scans look better. You look at the film with a loop, and then you get the drum scan back, and the scans look even better. It was awesome. And eventually, the machine broke, and then the cost of fixing it. They couldn't even give it away, which is crazy. I don't know how much. That machine was probably like 40 grand or something or more. I don't know. It was insane. But that was just a sign of the times. They couldn't even like give the machine away, even though it was broken. They couldn't fix it, or they didn't want to invest in it. So the drum scans were gone. So we started outsourcing the scans, and they were pretty lackluster in comparison. And then eventually the magazine went away, and we were just a website. And then it became like a YouTube focus. So we were just making videos all the time. And that was definitely, I was like, damn it, like, I want to shoot photos or even want to do video. But I took it as like the silver lining, like I'm still involved in BMX and I don't mind doing video stuff. And I can still shoot photos also, just maybe not as much as I was. But so I swallowed that jagged pill and I'm here, you know. But yeah, so once the scanner went away and once the print page went away, I'm like, well, am I gonna shoot film, process film, get scanned film just for a website? And then at that point, even photos on a website, they hardly get any page views, and page views are what fuels it all. Everything was YouTube based, so I was like, it just got to the point where there was no rhyme or reason to it. You know, I had to put my resources and time to shooting video. If I did shoot photos, another thing too, actually, a lot of times in the last like, I don't know, 8-10 years, when I do go out to shoot photos, like, unless it's for an assignment that was for a ride, like, I didn't know where the photos were going to go. Like, I could shoot something with somebody, and they're like, oh, Odyssey needs an ad, like, can we buy that photo off you? And if it was a film photo, I had to get it scanned and then try to sell it to the brand. It just got easier just to shoot everything digital, because then I could process the photos myself, and then wherever that photo needed to go, I could just do it. So that was another big reason as well. At this point, if I still shot film, it would be strictly for the love, which is a very strong reason, but I just don't have the time to do that. But I can't let go of the cameras, because in the back of my mind, I still do plan to use them for something at some point. I don't know when. I still have like a drawer in my refrigerator full of expired film, so it's all there. But the last 2 film photos I shot with my Hasselblad were of Calvin Kostovich. He overcrooked Hollywood High, and he did some tail whip over some road gap, and that was like, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years ago maybe, just guessing. I definitely have, the mantra of like, make it happen in the camera. I don't like being on the computer any more than I have to, and I pretty much live on the computer, but if I notice like a light stand is in the shot or something, I'm like, I could take it out later, or I could just move it right now and just save a little bit more time, so I definitely just try to make it right out of the gate. I mean, it's a pride thing too, because it is your craft, but also just to make my life easier and not have to do it later. As far as the film versus digital thing, the only other thing, like when I fully made the crossover to basically just shooting digital, the idea of turning a digital photo black and white was definitely weird at first, because when I was shooting film, you go to your whatever scene you're about to shoot. I'm looking at this thing that someone wants to do, and I'm like, oh, the textures in this ground, like this would be a sick black and white photo, and right there on the spot, you make the decision, like, I'm going to record this black and white, and that's it. You're stuck with it black and white. You can't turn it color later, And I always thought that was really cool when I look at people's photos, and I'm like, it's sick they chose to shoot that black and white. Like, I would have thought the same thing. And now it's like, you don't have to think that way anymore. I'll be honest with you, I'll still look at something and I'm like, this is totally going to be black and white later. You know what I mean? But I mean, a lot of times now though, someone could just be like messing with the photo in the raw converter and be like, oh, I wonder how this will look black and white. And they change it then. So it doesn't have the same quite the same weight behind it, because it's not like they had to make that call at the spot. You know what I'm saying? Like, but and the same thing with formats too. I mean, that was the best thing about the X-Pan. It's like, because composition for me is always like the thing that I love most about a photo that really stands. Obviously, like, you see photos of great lighting, and the lighting is what defines that photo. But for me, like, it can be ambient light, but composition is what always stands out to me as like the number one thing about photos that really like gets me. And that's like with X-Pan, it's like just the format, you have to really like work with it and find elements that like makes that photo worth to be shot with X-Pan. And now it's like, if you shoot digital and crop it later into a square or into a panoramic, it's like, well, you don't really know if the photographer had that vision when they're looking at the spot. You know, it's like, oh, I'm going to shoot this one with the Hasselblad because this is a perfect square with these palm trees and this. Now they can crop it later, and they might have had that vision, but you can't tell when you see the photo and know. And that's all gone with digital. We all just have the same blank canvas, and I feel like the backstory isn't there, if that makes any sense. Especially when you have multiple formats of cameras, whether it's like a half frame camera, and then you're like trying to work with 2 frames. Because I love that you have the 2 half frames, and you put them like a 35mm carrier, and those 2 frames have to complement one another and tell a story together, or a panoramic photo or something is square, and then when you see the photographer like work the setting to fit those formats, and they visualized it pre-photo with the camera, as opposed to having like a eureka moment afterwards in Photoshop and like, oh, this is the perfect panoramic photo, and they realize it in post-production, which is like, I feel like that's not where the magic is. The magic is like doing it in the camera. Yeah, I definitely think the think more, shoot less goes back to what I was saying about with the multi-formats of film cameras, and just predetermining which one to use and why, and why you think the composition would be better. Sometimes it comes down, who knows their computer better, or who knows their computer programs better. You know, it's like,